Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to 3 News Now. I'm Stephanie Haney. Today is Monday, August 23rd. Thank you for being here for the top stories from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. We start off with big news today. What you have known as the Pfizer vaccine for quite some time now has now gotten full approval from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. That happened today for individuals 16 years of age and older. Now, this is the formula made by Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech, and this is the strongest endorsement from the FDA ever because, now pay attention to this, no drug that's gotten full FDA approval has ever had so much evidence to judge its safety. If you take into account that more than 200 million Pfizer doses have been administered in the U.S. and more than hundreds of millions worldwide, this is under that emergency use authorization since December. But up to now, they were dispensed in this country under the emergency use authorization. Now, Dr. Jesse Goodman of Georgetown University, who is a former FDA vaccine chief, so getting as close as you can to straight from the source here, says that full FDA approval means that Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine meets the same, quote, very high standards required of all the approved vaccines we rely on every day. Going on to say that should help anyone who still has concerns gain confidence in the shots. Now, up until now, we've been calling this the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. Now it will be marketed as Comirnaty. Comirnaty is what you'll be hearing now. That is what it will be called now that it's been given the full FDA approval. It'll be marketed under that name. Now, this is the only fully FDA-approved COVID-19 vaccine on the market. Moderna applied to the FDA for full approval a few months after Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson says it hopes to apply for full approval later this year. So it will take time for both of those agencies to approve that. Today, President Joe Biden making remarks after the news of the approval, and he's urging people to get vaccinated now, saying you can do it here in the U.S. for free. It's widely available while people in other countries are still waiting for these shots. Now, here in Ohio, Dr. Bruce Vanderhoff, the new director of the Ohio Department of Health, is talking about what could be a perilous situation, in his words, over reports of summer surges of respiratory illnesses in children and increasing COVID-19 rates. He said that this unseasonably early increase in RSV coupled with rising pediatric cases of COVID-19 is a recipe for disaster. That's his warning. He said in just a month, our adult hospitals have seen their COVID hospitalizations jump almost 5 times higher, creating real stress and challenging their ability to maintain some services. He also said this: in addition, more Ohio children are now landing in the hospital due to an unexpected summer surge of respiratory illnesses. With COVID-19 on the rise, we might be approaching a perilous situation. At this time, the Ohio Children's Hospital Association has reported that they're seeing a wave of respiratory viruses and illnesses typically seen in winter rather than summer, and that was alarming for Dr. Vanderhoff. He said, okay, thankfully though, our children's hospitals are not yet at critical capacity levels, but we're very concerned. He said this: emergency departments, ICUs, and hospitalization rates are at levels more comparable to levels that we experience in the winter. It's not winter, it's August, summer. Therefore, it's likely that the worst is ahead of us. So that's a direct warning from Dr. Vanderhoff, the new director of the Ohio Department of Health. Now, out from the Ohio Department of Health today, let's take a look at the latest COVID-19 numbers here in Ohio. There have been 2,775 new reported cases of COVID-19 in the last day. That's an increase of 581 from yesterday when we saw 2,194 new COVID-19 cases, and it's above the daily 21-day daily average. That number bumped up now to 2,511, the 21-day average for new COVID-19 cases in Ohio. Right now, 1,981 people are in the hospital being treated for COVID-19, and out of those people, 602 are being treated in an intensive care unit. Now, as these numbers come out, as the Pfizer vaccine, Comirnaty, has been given full FDA approval, we now are hearing from the Big Ten that if your game is canceled due to a COVID-19 issue, that will result in a forfeit, according to the conference. Now, this is just 5 days before the Big Ten Conference college football games kick off, so they announced today that, yes, a team will have to forfeit if it doesn't have enough players for a league game because of COVID-19. Now, the Big Ten is not the only conference doing it. They join other Power 5 conferences who have made similar announcements, including the Big 12, the ACC, and the Pac-12. So today, the Big Ten is saying that the team that forfeits will be assessed a loss in the conference standings, and its opponent will be credited with a win. Now, if both teams are unable to compete on the date of a scheduled conference game because of COVID-19 and the game cannot be rescheduled, it'll be considered a no contest. So the only way out of that forfeit, if you have to bow out of a game because you don't have enough players related to COVID-19, is if the other team, by some force of nature, has the same situation and they can't field a team because of COVID-19. And only then would it work if you can reschedule the game, because you never know how these schedules work. It might not necessarily be possible to reschedule that conference game, but if you can, they can reschedule the game. If not, it'll be a no contest. Now let's turn to Cleveland Browns football, and if you watched the preseason game yesterday, you saw that the Cleveland Browns came away with the win over the New York Giants. There's one more preseason game, that's next Sunday before the season opener on the road against the Kansas City Chiefs for the Browns. Well, Myles Garrett has something else on his mind between now and then. He has been named the Cleveland Browns official ambassador to university hospitals. UH announced this partnership with Garrett today, and we will see the star defensive end serve as the ambassador to UH. And as part of this partnership, Garrett and UH will collaborate on healthcare and wellness issues with a shared goal of helping Northeast Ohioans live their best lives. That's a quote from UH in announcing that partnership. Here's what Myles Garrett had to say. Since the moment I was drafted by the Browns, the Cleveland community embraced me and took me in as one of their own. This partnership allows me to help serve a community that has meant so much to me, and I'm excited to work with university hospitals in a meaningful way that leaves the Northeast Ohio community better for all. He went on to say, I am also looking forward to the ability to connect with Northeast Ohio in a different way. There is so much more to me than the incredible game of football, and I look forward to sharing other aspects of who I am through this partnership. Now, yes, there is definitely a lot more to Myles Garrett than his football abilities, but his football abilities are pretty incredible. He's entering his 5th season now with the Cleveland Browns, 25 years old, coming off a 2020 season where he got 12 sacks in 14 regular season games. And over the course of his career in Cleveland, he's got 42.5 sacks. It's the 7th highest total in franchise history already. And we hope to see much more from Myles Garrett on the field. Now, speaking of Myles Garrett, this week on my 3 Things to Know podcast, my guest is YouTube star turned boxer Jake Paul. He's got a big fight coming up on Sunday. That'll be here in Cleveland on Sunday, August 29th at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. He's taking on former UFC champion Tyron Woodley. And today, Jake Paul is responding to something that Myles Garrett said. In an interview with Complex, Myles Garrett was asked about what he might do after football, and the topic of celebrity boxing came up. Well, the conversation turned to who would win in a fight between Myles Garrett and Logan Paul. Well, Myles Garrett thinks that he would beat Logan Paul in a celebrity boxing match, but he doesn't want to do it, but he thinks that he would. Well, when I asked Jake Paul about what he had to say about that, he said he's a Cleveland Browns fan, nothing but respect for Myles Garrett as a football player, but he said this: stick to football, my friend. Those were Jake Paul's words to Myles Garrett. He believes that Logan Paul would knock out Myles Garrett. He talked about some of the other people that he'd sparred with and what a contest it would be. And he also talked about what happened when Nate Robinson from the NBA got into the ring. And he talks about how boxing is one of those things where, according to Jake Paul, only time will help you get better with that. You need the experience. It's not something that necessarily translates from sport to sport. So Jake Paul's saying stick to football for Myles Garrett. You can see more about that on WKYC.com/3 Things to Know, including the rest of the interview where he shares with me some surprises that he has in store, not only for Tyron Woodley, but also for fans who'll be watching that fight at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And a little bit more about his training regimen, how he feels about being considered the villain, and lots of good stuff from Jake Paul. So make sure you check that out. You can find that at WKYC.com/3 Things to Know. You can watch it on our WKYC YouTube page, or you can listen on your favorite podcast platform for all things Jake Paul heading into that fight on Sunday at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, and it will be guaranteed to be a good show. Speaking of a good show, our WKYC.com high school football game of the week is back, and you can now vote. Voting is now open between now and 12:30 p.m. on Wednesday. Here are the contests that are up for it this week. St. Ignatius versus Menor, Avon Lake versus Brecksville Broadview Heights, and Granger Highland versus North Royalton. So take a look at that, WKYC.com, if you want to vote for which high school football game you want to see highlighted on 3 News this week. It'll be called live by our Dave Dino DiNatale, and our Tyler Carey, our digital reporter, will jump in with analysis and score updates from around the region as well as that's going on. And then highlights will be on our 11 p.m. broadcast on What's Next. And if you do vote, you get the opportunity to be entered for a free meal from Chick-fil-A. That's it for your 3 News Now update today for Monday, August 23rd. I will see you next up on What's New with your trending stories in the Clicking in Cleveland segment, and I will see you back here tomorrow with more 3 News Now.